As for somebody who's worked on probably every single car they've owned from the beginning, this is my bought, not built beauty. I'm not ashamed to say that because I was given the opportunity to purchase this vehicle, and it was kind of like, it was a special little moment. I kind of got my reward. And this came about, and, it was done. And it was like this breath of fresh air. And the fact that one of my greatest friends built this thing. This is kind of like all of his energy was put into this vehicle to develop this like monster, right? So my first interest in cars, I guess, came from just being around them just when I was younger. My very first photograph of a car my brother gave to me, it was a 911 cutaway schematic. It had a proof on the side, had all the color blots of the proofing. It was just like a print on a piece of cardboard. You just look at all the parts and pieces. It had everything, all the fuel rails, it had all the suspension, it had the brakes, calipers, rotors. So you just kind of look at it and you're kind of like, how does this all go together? How does this massive parts do anything? During college, I worked on my own cars. That's the only way I could afford to keep everything going. And ultimately, the passion began to just grow. So an interest, it wasn't one specific brand or a niche or anything. I had multiple cars. I had up to, I think, 20 Saabs at one point. And later in my life, I met somebody who had a similar interest. We worked together for a little while. James, who happens to be the co-owner of Sharkwerks. We'd always work on cars together. We had a couple projects on the go all the time. And then James decided to pursue his career in California. So he expanded with his partner Alex and created Sharkwerks, which the 2004 GT3 behind me is a development vehicle for Sharkwerks. They needed to do engine development, so they wanted to do something different. So James, being a mad scientist, decided to kind of work out what was potentially possible to get out of this water-cooled platform. So it moved from a 3.6 to a 3.9, proprietary cam profile and tuning based on that specific engine, all kind of put together that package. This car was their mule car, development car, in conjunction with another friend of mine. They were doing the 997, I think at or just before. So they were working on both engines simultaneously to see what the differences were and kind of see where they could go with each one. And so Alex said, yeah, let's go for a drive. So, the first experience for a hot-rodded GT3. I was super apprehensive. It's kind of like, it's a shop car, but it's their development car, and it's a powerful car, and you're kind of like, holy shit, can I handle this, right? I'm not going like crazy, but like, how crazy is this car? First time driving a high-powered GT3. So I've driven 911s prior to that, G-bodies and all sorts of stuff, but this was kind of their brainchild and their monster. So I'll never forget, we just took it for a casual cruise, just kind of feel it out. Brakes were insane. Engine sounded like super loud. I think it had track pipe on it at the time. And I'll never forget, I ground the gears, classic, pretending I knew what I was doing. And it was funny. I looked at him and he's like, don't worry about it. And nothing that I had owned up to that point in time felt or was anything like this before. So it was a special experience to drive the vehicle that your friends had put so much energy into developing. So there's kind of a little bit closer relationship than just like, a hot rod shop doing it up for you. And I know how much time and energy they put into it, right? So I have to say, it's like probably one of the most special experiences to have, a very good friend of yours build something, experience it, and then being offered to acquire it. Not only do I love the car, and I've driven a number of different cars after this and before this, and it just has such a special chassis, the way it's set up, the engine, the brake combination. You kind of drive something else that's higher performance or a little bit different feel, and you come back to this and you're like, it's incredible. This is definitely one of the most underrated GT3 platforms. Some people get so hung up on the aesthetics of it and those damn headlights, fried eggs or not. You really have to get up close to the vehicle. I say, until you wash it, you really don't know a vehicle. You're right up front, you're looking down the fender lines. It's funny, I think you can kind of compare it to what Pinky Lai, the developer who did the design language on this, what he saw or how they developed it. So you kind of experience that, the narrow body, the up rings on the rear deck lid that support the wing, all the little details. Nobody really pays that much attention to. They kind of look at the outline form. But beyond that, this was Andreas Prieringer's very first brainchild. This is the GT3 chassis or platform that was developed for Porsche. And I think that in itself has some merit. It's kind of interesting to reflect on, kind of where it came from to where it is today. And I think, the 996 totally gets overlooked. Throughout the different cars I've owned, this is probably gauging on one of the longest vehicles I've ever owned. And it served all sorts of purposes, you know, from just driver development to just having a hot rod, like a hot rodded 911. So the reason why I've had it for so long, I think, is beyond the brand. It's an incredible car to drive, the way it's set up right now. You know, I've driven a number of different vehicles. And you kind of go right back to this and you get into it and you're like, wow, it's got everything you can imagine. Honestly, there's nothing I could replace it with that gives you the same sensation. Even still today, there's nothing that would compare to this build, in my opinion, right? Unless you're to duplicate it. And it's something I want to pass on. It's a car that I would like to pass on to my son. You know, I think it's that special. From my son's perspective, my father and his friend had this passion in vehicles. And his friend built this, and, you know, this mad scientist built this machine. I think means a bit. It means a bit to me, maybe more than anybody else, but you know, I think that kind of checks most of the boxes. And it's just a kind of a unique ownership experience for me.